Pause for a moment and listen carefully, because what I'm about to uncover has the potential to shake the foundation of how you see your life. Almost every human being walks through the world as if they are awake, yet in reality they remain asleep from birth to death. They believe they are alive, but most never breathe a single day that truly belongs to them. If you happen to be here, perhaps late at night with tired eyes scrolling through content in a restless state, you may have stumbled upon the single most defining lesson of your lifetime. Picture this scenario. The person sitting across from you on public transport, the colleague who works beside you, and maybe even you yourself are not actually living according to their own purpose. Instead, they are carrying out the agenda of others while their own essence slowly withers away. Each morning, you are summoned by an alarm clock you did not choose, pushed into routines structured by invisible hands, only to return to bed with the nagging knowledge that you have once again acted out a role written by someone else. Yet deep in forgotten history lies a doctrine, forged 5 centuries ago, that reveals how some of the most formidable figures to ever walk this earth managed to cut themselves free from this invisible chain. Hidden within the writings of a man so feared that his name still evokes unease, rests the blueprint to liberate yourself from a life of servitude. Niccolò Machiavelli did not write his lessons as a guide for shallow career advancement or to help someone politely climb ladders of hierarchy. He etched his ideas in order to show individuals how to seize control in a world designed to ensure their obedience. What you are about to uncover in this journey is why blind conformity silently poisons human potential, how the courage to stand apart transforms you into someone unstoppable, and the specific framework for creating a life so raw and authentic that others cannot help but be drawn to your fire. But I must give you this warning before you continue further. When you allow your eyes to see this knowledge, there is no turning back. You will never be able to return to the comforting illusions that held you before. Once you recognize the architecture of the system surrounding you, the patterns of control can no longer be unseen. Your perception will alter permanently. The only question is whether you are ready to awaken from the illusion and begin walking your own road. If you are, I want you to engrave this phrase into your mind and declare it aloud in the comments if you must. I claim my path. The first deception we need to examine is the myth of conformity. From the very first cry of your existence, society begins pressing its mold onto your flesh. The instructions are the same for nearly everyone. Sit in classrooms, chase high grades, obtain a respectable occupation, enter marriage, purchase a home, raise children, retire quietly, then vanish. This script is sold as the formula for joy and stability. But here is the secret rarely spoken. That script was not crafted with your fulfillment as its aim. It was engineered to maintain order, to comfort those who benefit from predictable lives. Reflect on the structure of your own days. How many genuine choices are yours? The hour you awaken determined by employment. The clothing you choose shaped by unspoken codes of acceptance. The food you consume dictated by advertising and cultural pressure. Even your desires and ambitions are filtered through what is deemed appropriate or reasonable by those around you. Modern existence appears to offer endless options, yet in truth it has perfected the illusion of freedom. You may browse through 1,000 brands of the same commodity, but the framework of how you live remains nearly identical to every other person. This conditioning is subtle yet profound. Educational institutions taught you to sit in neat rows, to request permission before speaking, to obey without question. Corporate systems enforce these habits through strict schedules, standardized reviews, and constant evaluation of whether you fit rather than whether you create. Peer groups sustain the pattern by rewarding sameness and punishing divergence with whispers, gossip, or subtle exclusion. Over time, the result is generations of human beings who behave more like carefully programmed machines than living souls. They have rehearsed the act of being what others want for so long that they have forgotten the possibility of discovering their own essence beneath all the masks. Machiavelli once remarked that the measure of a ruler's intelligence could be gauged by the quality of the people surrounding him. But imagine for a moment what happens when you are not surrounded by anyone, when you decide to trust only your own analysis. The terror of solitude has paralyzed most individuals, for they have never learned to respect their own judgment. They cling to crowds because being wrong together feels safer than being right alone. And so, millions remain imprisoned within paths they never consciously selected. Now let us step into the second dimension of liberation, The art of self-reliance in a world woven together by invisible threads of dependency. Many individuals misunderstand independence, mistaking it for isolation, or assuming that to carve one's own path means to cut ties with everyone around them. That interpretation is flawed and dangerous. The true mastery lies not in severing connection, but in approaching every connection from a position of strength rather than weakness. Imagine the difference between a person who enters a relationship begging for approval and one who enters offering value from a place of certainty. The first will forever bend themselves to be accepted, while the second naturally commands respect. Real independence means developing such inner stability that you do not require constant reassurance, such financial resilience that you can walk away from compromises, and such intellectual clarity that you can form opinions without borrowing them from the loudest voice in the room. Consider a common scene. You find yourself in a meeting where an obviously flawed idea is being celebrated by the majority. The average person faces a dilemma. Either they speak out and risk being labeled difficult, or they remain silent to preserve harmony. Both choices keep them chained to the collective. But the strategically independent individual has prepared differently. They have studied the facts, examined alternatives, and built conviction rooted in their own analysis. When they speak, they do not do so for attention, but from a place of solid knowledge. Their words carry weight precisely because they emerge from independence rather than conformity. This is the essence of self-reliance, no longer outsourcing your judgment to others, no longer waiting for permission to decide, no longer measuring your worth by borrowed standards. Independence is not the rejection of society. It is the cultivation of such strength that society adjusts to you instead of you adjusting to it. Think of the qualities that mark a genuinely self-reliant person. Their financial resources are shaped by discipline, not by desperation, giving them the freedom to step away from toxic situations without fear. Their emotional balance allows them to remain steady when others crave approval, making their presence grounding rather than needy. Their intellectual hunger drives them to seek knowledge beyond trends, forming conclusions based on evidence rather than popularity. Machiavelli once warned that everyone can see appearances, but only a few can perceive the true nature beneath. In the same way, when you move through the world with authentic clarity, most will see only the surface of your calm confidence, but those who matter will recognize the depth beneath. And here lies the paradox. The more comfortable you become standing on your own, the more attractive you become to others. People are drawn to strength, not to imitation. They want to follow those who do not need to be followed. Reflect on the great figures who shifted industries and cultures. Their success was never born from mimicry. It came from vision so distinct that others were compelled to rally behind them. The inventor who introduced devices no one had thought possible. The leader who redefined what connection on a screen could mean. The media figure who abandoned conventional formulas to build an empire on authenticity. None of them waited for permission. They trusted their private conviction until the world had no choice but to acknowledge it. That is the silent force of independence. The more rooted you are in your own truth, the more magnetic your influence becomes. In business negotiations, this principle turns into a weapon of power. The individual who can walk away without fear of loss will almost always secure the better terms. When you are not desperate for approval, approval comes to you. When you are not chasing opportunity, opportunities chase you. When you are no longer pleading to be noticed, your results make you impossible to ignore. This transformation is not instantaneous. It does not happen by reading a quote or repeating a phrase. It is the product of countless small choices where you choose your own analysis over collective assumptions, your standards over convenience, your long-term growth over short-term applause. It means saying no to options that look safe but are misaligned so you can say yes to ones that set your soul alight. It means allowing some people to be disappointed in you so that the right people can discover you. It means suffering temporary discomfort so that lasting fulfillment can be built. Each rejection of conformity is a step toward strength, and each step toward strength compounds into a foundation that cannot be broken. I want you to etch these words into your thoughts. I attract what aligns with my essence. Write it, declare it, repeat it until it becomes part of your being. Because once you embody this truth, you shift from chasing approval to embodying magnetism, from following paths to drawing others onto yours. We now arrive at the third and most unsettling principle, the necessity of risk. Human beings are conditioned from childhood to seek safety, to avoid the unknown, and to cling to routines that feel predictable. Yet in reality, the greatest hazard is not risk, but the absence of it. When you play your entire life on defense, hiding from discomfort, you guarantee a future of regret. Look across history, and you will see that every leap forward in civilization, every invention that redefined possibility, every movement that reshaped culture, was born from an individual or group willing to step into uncertainty. But here lies a critical distinction. There is recklessness, and there is strategy. Recklessness is the blind plunge into chaos without preparation, while calculated risk is the measured act of stepping forward with awareness of the terrain, understanding the potential consequences, and preparing for both success and failure. The masses run from risk because they fear the weight of responsibility. When you take no risks, you can blame external forces for your stagnation. But when you act boldly, the outcome, whether victory or defeat, becomes yours to own. The fear of risk is nothing more than the fear of accountability. Many would rather tell themselves that life is unfair than face the fact that they never truly tried. Playing it safe feels comfortable because it provides an endless list of excuses. But those who dare to risk claim authorship of their own destiny. Machiavelli once remarked that between fear and love, fear holds greater reliability, not because cruelty is desirable, but because decisiveness breeds respect. When you are willing to embrace risk with calculation, people perceive you as someone to be reckoned with. Even if the outcome is not perfection, the act of daring elevates you above the passive majority. Each failed attempt transforms into raw data that no classroom could ever provide. Each setback becomes the foundation for a sharper return. Every stumble along the path is not a defeat, but an education disguised in harsh clothing. Those who refuse risk stagnate forever, while those who embrace it discover momentum even in failure. Think about the illusions that hold people hostage. Fear of financial collapse keeps them working lifeless jobs. Yet the truth is they are already enslaved to systems that undervalue their potential. Fear of rejection keeps them clinging to shallow relationships and hollow friendships, yet the reality is they are already surrounded by people who do not understand them. Fear of failure convinces them to stay small, yet their so-called safety is itself a failure to rise toward their potential. When you inspect these fears closely, they dissolve into shadows. The mind exaggerates the consequences of risk while downplaying the cost of never attempting. Imagine yourself at the end of your life looking back. Which regret would weigh heavier? That you tried, risked, failed, learned, and grew, or that you protected yourself so thoroughly you never discovered what you were capable of? This is the brutal truth. Safety is not safe. It is a silent coffin in which your ambition is buried alive. To take risks strategically is to study your environment, to prepare multiple exits, to anticipate potential setbacks, and then to move forward with eyes open. It is not the gamble of a fool, but the chess move of a strategist. The reckless leap may create chaos, but the calculated step creates evolution. And here lies the reward. The more you practice risk, the more resilient you become. The sting of failure fades into numbness, and the thrill of learning becomes addictive. Slowly, your nervous system adapts, no longer perceiving risk as danger, but as opportunity. Each decision that once felt terrifying now becomes fuel for growth. This shift is liberation itself. You are no longer paralyzed by the thought of rejection because you know rejection is merely a redirect. You are no longer immobilized by the prospect of loss because you know loss teaches in ways comfort never will. Risk, when embraced with strategy, is the crucible that forges unshakable strength, and this leads to the final and most liberating recognition: the danger of not risking at all. If you reject every opportunity to step outside the expected, you may reach the end of your life with the haunting realization that you never truly lived. You will have exchanged decades of existence for a mirage of stability. You will have traded away vitality for predictability, only to realize that predictability itself becomes a prison. The hidden cost of avoiding risk is not safety but emptiness. It is the quiet despair of knowing you played the game but never dared to change its rules. And once that recognition comes, it cannot be undone. That is why the individuals who achieve the most extraordinary transformations are not those who never failed, but those who risked repeatedly until failure itself became irrelevant. They understood that the only unbearable outcome is not rejection, not loss, not embarrassment, but the slow death of never discovering their full capacity. Remember this truth and etch it into your mind. The gravest risk is the life unlived. You will reach the end of your days with an unwritten song still locked inside you if you continue to live passively. This is not exaggeration. It is the destiny of countless people who mistake caution for wisdom. Machiavelli's philosophy of anticipating obstacles was never a sermon of despair, but a manual for clarity. To anticipate the storms ahead is not to resign yourself to them, but to arm yourself against them. When you think through difficulties before they arise, you enter each pursuit with steadiness rather than hesitation. Confidence is born not from luck, but from preparation. If you wish to test your limits and harness risk as a weapon, you need a framework to approach it. The first principle is precision. Define what you are chasing and know exactly why it matters. Dreams left vague dissolve into fog. Clear intentions sharpen the path. If you cannot tell yourself why your goal burns within you, the first strong wind of adversity will blow you off course. Specificity is the anchor that holds you through the inevitable turbulence. Once you have declared your aim with exactness, turn your attention to the shadows that surround it. Identify what stands in your way. Name the possible failures before they name you. Most fears shrink when exposed to light. Write the nightmare scenarios on paper and then stare at them with reason. You will often discover that the catastrophes haunting your mind have little chance of materializing. Fear thrives in the imagination but weakens under scrutiny. The simple act of describing the worst outcome removes half of its power. Next comes the art of contingency. Do not merely prepare Plan A and cling to it. Construct Plan B, Plan C, even Plan D. Each alternative is a shield. Backup strategies do not signal that you expect defeat. They announce that you are adaptable. The warrior who prepares multiple weapons enters battle with more assurance than the one who depends on a single blade. This readiness multiplies your odds of triumph because when reality shifts, you pivot without panic. Then comes the wisdom of scale. Do not gamble everything in a single reckless throw. Risk can be trained like a muscle. Begin with smaller experiments that test your courage without breaking you. Each small victory strengthens your capacity to take larger leaps later. A builder lays many stones before the structure rises. Each calculated attempt, no matter how minor, develops competence and breeds confidence. Momentum is a powerful ally, and progress compounds over time. Alongside this progression, carve out a timeline. Mark the milestones that will tell you if your path is bearing fruit. Without markers, you risk quitting prematurely or clinging too long to a failing endeavor. Metrics sharpen judgment. They tell you when to persist and when to pivot. Finally, act. All the thinking in the world is meaningless if it never touches reality. Analysis without movement is disguised procrastination. Perfect timing does not exist, and flawless information will never arrive. At some moment, you must strike. Understand this deeply. Risk is not your adversary. The enemy is the dullness of mediocrity. It is not uncertainty that threatens you, but the prison of stagnation. The unknown should not frighten you nearly as much as the suffocating certainty of a life that never grows. The true terror is not the risk of loss, but the guarantee of a muted existence. When you confront this truth honestly, you recognize that uncertainty is the only path toward discovery. Embrace it as the raw material of transformation. Declare it boldly, I embrace uncertainty, because in truth, the refusal to risk is itself the most dangerous gamble of all. Now we move into uncharted territory, the forging of your personal path. This is not rebellion for its own sake, not a childish rejection of society. It is deliberate selection. You strip away what does not serve you and choose only what aligns with your vision. The first step is ruthless honesty. Ask yourself what you genuinely want when no one else is looking, not the desires handed to you by family, peers, or culture. What stirs you when the world is silent? What pursuit fills you with energy instead of draining it? These questions are brutal because they reveal how often we live for expectations rather than authenticity. Many must dig into childhood memories to rediscover what once sparked their imagination before they were told to be realistic. And remember, authenticity evolves. The compass remains true, but the landscapes change. Flexibility is not betrayal of your path. It is survival within it. Machiavelli once reminded us that the lion terrifies wolves but falls into traps, while the fox detects snares but cannot scare predators. To walk your own road, you must learn to be both fox and lion. Cunning without courage leaves you passive. Courage without cunning leaves you vulnerable. To begin, conduct a personal audit. Examine your current life with brutal clarity. Which parts resonate with your true direction, and which parts are relics of habit, fear, or other people's demands? This exercise is uncomfortable but essential. You cannot navigate to your destination if you lie about your current location. Study your schedule. How many hours feed your spirit, and how many hours drain it? Study your relationships. Who adds energy and who siphons it away? Study your thoughts. How much of your mental fuel is spent on what you value versus what others pressure you to value? Until you confront these realities, you cannot move forward. Next, uncover your unique equation of strengths, interests, and values. What abilities come naturally to you? What subjects consume your attention without effort? Which principles will you refuse to betray even under pressure? These three elements form the foundation of your authentic road. Strengths are not only technical skills but also ways of thinking, natural traits, and refined abilities. Interests are not shallow hobbies but the themes and activities that hold your focus long after distractions fade. Values are not abstract words on paper but the non-negotiable laws of your life, the things for which you would sacrifice comfort. Build your vision upon this triad. From here, begin with steady steps. Do not imagine you must abandon everything at once. Revolutionary change is built on consistent actions repeated over time. Write 1 page a day and you have a book in a year. Commit 30 minutes each morning to your project, and it will grow into something real. Consistency is the secret multiplier. Measure success by your own design, not by the borrowed definitions of society. Money, recognition, or titles may impress others but may not fulfill you. Define success in terms that align with freedom, impact, and fulfillment. How much sovereignty do you have over your time? How deeply do your actions shape the world in ways you value? How often do you feel alive instead of depleted? Build feedback loops that track these inner metrics. Stop measuring your worth through likes, salaries, or compliments. Create internal systems that evaluate your alignment with your values and the progress toward your vision. External validation is fickle, but internal alignment endures. Resistance will come, and you must be prepared. Friends may feel threatened, family may pressure you, colleagues may mock you. Their criticism reflects their fear, not your potential. Their judgment is the echo of their own chains. You must be ready to stand firm when their voices rise. Surround yourself with allies who understand the fire of authenticity. Sometimes these allies are not the people you grew up with. Seek mentors, communities, and companions who respect your independence. You will need reinforcement when resistance intensifies. Remember, your path is not static. It will twist and bend. The destination is not always clear, but the compass is internal. Trust it. Within you resides knowledge no one else can access. Your instincts. Instincts are not wild guesses. They are accumulated wisdom distilled from every experience you've lived. When something feels wrong, that feeling is often the truth faster than your conscious analysis can explain. Listen to it. It is your hidden ally. Affirm it. I trust myself. This trust is the foundation of authentic life. Without it, you will always look to others for permission, and permission rarely comes. With it, you move forward even through doubt. By now, the illusions of conformity have been stripped bare. You see how mediocrity disguises itself as safety, how independence creates magnetism, how risk becomes the forge of resilience, and how charting your course demands both cunning and courage. But knowledge without action is still paralysis. You can consume endless lessons, scroll through endless content, and fill notebooks with insights. Yet nothing changes until you begin. The world does not need another copy of someone else. It needs the exact expression of you. Your voice, your perspective, your contribution. All the breakthroughs that reshaped humanity came from those who dared to be different. They questioned the script, defied the crowd, and carved a path where none existed. Your throne is not hidden in a distant kingdom. It materializes the moment you claim it, the moment you choose authenticity over imitation, the moment you trust yourself over the herd. Ask yourself honestly, are you willing to disappoint a few people to honor yourself? Are you willing to endure uncertainty to discover your true potential? Are you willing to stand alone if it means standing in truth? Every delay adds another day of captivity. Every excuse adds another bar to the cage. Every surrender to safety is a vote for mediocrity. Start with one action today, no matter how small. Send the message, make the call, begin the page, speak the truth. Test the idea. Courage is not absence of fear, but the decision to move despite it. You do not need readiness to begin. You do not need permission to act. You only need to step forward. The future self you dream of is waiting for the present you to act. Declare it, my time is now. Because if you will not claim your throne, no one else will offer it to you. And if you wait too long, you will leave this world with your song still unsung, your vision still unrealized, and your potential still buried.